Hello? Hello, 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 hello. Yours truly, John Beattie, International Director of the British People's League. Voice hesitation as I keep my fingers crossed that I'm doing the connecting all okay for today's Dinosaur News. Dinosaur News brought to you by the British People's League this April 22nd, 2014. One day before D-Day, D-Day being St. George's Day. The history of England. Tomorrow, I'm certain there will be thousands upon thousands in the small white villages of England marching for St. George's Day. The history and memory of our ancestors. I say our. I have one pinch English, a Geordie from Newcastle on Tyne, my grandmother. Fenwick. Eleanor Fenwick. And the rest of the blood is Scottish. So perhaps the pinch of English keeps my feet on the ground. Anyway, I'm proud of my British blood. But let's just think about all of the patriots in England tomorrow proudly waving their cross of St. George. Looks like we're doing okay so far today with the broadcast. So I won't have to groan at you about having to do a rehearsal. And yes, the second time wearing of the one of the two sweaters. The Knitting Guild, retired civil service in Ottawa. And as said yesterday, refer back to the show of the 17th of April, and you get the details about auction bidding for these beautiful sweaters. And if bids don't come in, then yours truly will purchase them and donate, as usual, out of my pocket to pay internet bills. Although the ladies, I'm sure, will give yours truly a fair price. They're just trying to help the British People's League with a lot of work knitting these sweaters. Okay, so that's that plug. Let's get the other plug going here. Our main thrust in Britain, connection in Britain, of course, Candor. Candor League put out great publications. They have many books, especially of interest to motherland patriots, British patriots in the motherland. Well, around as well. They have subscribers here in Canada too. Candor, C-A-N-D-O-U-R, candor.org.uk. Okay, so for today, I guess it's planning day in Britain, in England, in particular England. Planning day for St. George's. Bet a lot of phones are going, the cell phones are going back and forth, and flags being distributed, and the police seem to cooperate. Well, why shouldn't they? But they do seem to cooperate. There's been in Brighton, the very southern tip, of course, of England, the last couple of years, fantastic turnouts, just fantastic. So do tune into YouTube, I'd say tomorrow evening, because they're way ahead of us time-wise, and you should be able to pick up some YouTube displays of great shows of patriotism in England tomorrow, or the day, well, tomorrow's St. George's Day, but even the day after that. Don't miss out on these YouTubes. Other groups are picking up on YouTubes as well. So, I mean, I got to praise the YouTube setup. It's incredible that we have this to be able to do. YouTube itself is free. What I cry for gift donations is the internet charges itself. And I'm just down to a bare bone pension to pay the mortgage here at the house. So please, some of you out there, try and consider donating. Okay, so I'm stalling a little bit. Today's topic's kind of hot for me. And maybe friends of the British People's League out there will give fresh food for thought. I've been invited again onto a blog talk show on the internet. I'm sure by now most viewers are aware of the blog talk or internet radio, whatever you want to call it. So that's fine. I'm not going to reveal who at this point. And my following words are no disrespect to the current invitation whatsoever. It's just that another invitation, it's making me think about this blog situation, interviews. Well, the fact I'm doing the YouTubes here shows I'm not hiding as International Director of the British People's League. British People's League, of course, being sponsors of the Dinosaur News, brought to you as best we can 5 days a week. If a day is ever missed, it's either A, Beattie's got personal things to take care of, or B, the internet connection or the YouTube connection didn't work for me. But I'll do my best 5 days a week. We do our best, the British People's League. Our friends out there. Our enemy likes to say there's only Beattie sitting on YouTube and his work for the British People's League on the website. Well, obviously there's got to be some friends out there. I couldn't be coming up with these themes all on my own. And those who have steadily viewed know we have friends out there. But no, Mr. Enemy out there, you're not going to know who our friends are. So it's an underground. A legal underground, but never the same an underground. For when things get worse, we will be prepared. In a legal way. Our underground thinks of thoughts of resistance, non-violent resistance. Make of that what you like. Okay, back to the radio interviews, internet radio interviews. Well, first off, this boy has to think of those of British blood as my blood brother to a degree, okay? To a degree. I'm not going to willingly call some rip-snorting communist who's going around shoving multiculturalism down the throat of pretty young maids a brother, even if he is white and has pure British genes, DNA, credentials. So of course we have to look at the political views, how they're being carried out of people. But back to point A. The first thing I must recognize is if they are of British stock. Now look, our European cousins are there, okay? But this is the age of specialization. Well, Beattie boy here, the British People's League, we specialize in those of British stock, British roots. We have many friends who are European cousins, of course, okay? So let's let that be a fact. It is a fact. But how far is the willingness to be interviewed to get the word out for the British People's League? So when I'm invited, of course I would know who's behind the invitation, etc. But I can't overly judge. If we got someone who's a patriot to those of British stock and our history and our ancestry, I can't be too judgmental. I guess it depends who's viewing. Because as I said in yesterday's show, I mean, Prince Philip's been called a Nazi. Prince Charles has been called a Nazi. Perhaps I worry about being smeared too much. But as our civil servant captain in Ottawa said, she was trying to impress a friend as to our work on behalf of our ancestry. But this friend said immediately, oh, I've heard of that Beattie guy. Oh, he's a fascist, whatever. But the word gets out more and more thanks to YouTube that this boy ain't a fascist. And you'll have to dig up our very first YouTube, not Dinosaur News, but our very first YouTube for the British People's League, called The Whitewashing of John Beattie. Okay? I believe it was January 28th, 2013. January 28th, previous year. It's out there somewhere. Just go YouTube John Beattie, or John Beattie, amongst all the smears. It'll show up, and then you get the whole story. Good job at whitewashing. But then, you know, once you're being involved in controversy, it makes you nervous. But I've got to stop this foolishness. We're fighting a war here for our very racial survival. And I've got to stop letting smears worry me. Tiptoe through the tulips ain't going to work. Besides, Alice Cooper had an awful squeaky voice. We don't want to end up with a squeaky voice like Alice Cooper now, do we? So I do worry too much about the image. Okay, we don't want to be interviewed by Charles Manson from his prison cell. We don't want to be interviewed by Howard Stern. So it'll be certain shades of gray, certain shades of green. Hell, the enemies are a race who call Jesus Christ a fascist, and look at the vicious movies put out about Jesus to offending as many Christians as possible. So down the road, when it's announced that yours truly is going to be interviewed by such and such a person, let's not judge the interviewer. Let's judge this boy here, Beattie Boy, and have confidence that I'll do a good job for the British People's League. Reminds me again of one of the people on our blind list advising me, a few years back, whether I like it or not, I have to tackle the interviewers. The interviews. But the smear potential out there is, I have to be prepared for it. If I'm going to be the spokesperson, the label on the British People's League ketchup bottle, then I'll just have to be tough enough. I'm referring to when that maniac in Norway a couple of years ago killed all those young children and early teens in Norway protesting multiculturalism, Breivik or whatever the hell his name was. And because it was put in the news media that he had been on British forums of some kind or posted just the word British, of course the CBC that I call the Communism Before Canada over here, they felt there was a great opportunity to smear Beattie in the British People's League. So they sent an email, the French division. So the French Canadian was getting in on it too. Hey, the French at CBC are not friends of the British People's League, but the average French Canadian in Quebec, they're great, patriotic to Canada, obviously. And the Separatist Party just got voted down again. But back to this attempted interview. So they said that, the email read something like, Mr. Beattie, CBC French Division, we'd like to interview you. I don't even know if they said about Breivik. I think they did. But it was right at the same time, so I'm not that stupid. But I discussed it with some people on our blind list, the British People's League coaches. And boy, some felt I should tackle the interviewer. I just wasn't prepared. I still had a day job. Let's not forget that. Now it's a different aspect. And now I just hit myself with that fact, and that's why I'm not as concerned. Hey, bingo, just hit me now. But back then, a couple of years ago, I still had my day job. Respectable day job. So I could just imagine the CBC interview going on the lines of, Breivik guy, he had ties with the British, and trying to tie in the British People's League with the slaughter, just to sort of plant a seed in your mind. So that's the way I felt. To hell with them. And besides, when you try and deny things, whatever, they put in what they want. They take a 2-minute soundbite. I have to weigh that up too. I've heard this from many patriots in the States, They take a chance going on certain shows, controversial shows that want to smear the patriots. And that, we've got to weigh that. So with the Breivik attempt by CBC French station, one of our blinders was kind enough to get in touch with a pseudonym, a cover name, and just say Mr. Beattie is unavailable. And then the CBC didn't give up. They said by email, well, is anyone available to speak for the British People's League? And I told our associate friend, no, nobody's available. So that evening, I tuned into CBC French, and sure enough, they had an interview. They were not an interview. They were discussing about the Brezhnev situation. Brezhnev, yeah, that's a good analogy. Brezhnev, the head of the Soviet Union, slaughtered hundreds of thousands of people, whereas and here's Brezhnev killing young people. But anyway, so that night on the French radio network, my high school French, je parle un peu de français, but I could catch key phrases, especially when they said the Ligue de Britannie, British People's League. So they went ahead and put my name, put the name, not the name of our association. Our enemies would grab at that Beattie is just all by himself here. You know who you are out there, our friends who have kept us going. Anyway, they did mention the British People's League on the show without anyone even being present. So there's a sample, but then I have to differentiate. I have to differentiate between the sworn enemy, the multicult promoters who want to commit genocide on white people around the globe, versus patriots in the British cause who, you know, in some ways are on the fringes of real controversy. So I have to weigh that up. But anyway, the interview coming up within the next couple of weeks will be somewhat controversial. So I'll let you all know after it's done, the day after it's done. Not that I'm trying to be smart with my advisors, but just as so it doesn't leak out ahead of time and mess it up. So it'll be exciting. And down the road, we'll have to get this policy, because I can see patriots are running thin. A lot of them are running away from the blog shows, and some of them aren't too culturally apt for our cause, and they goof up. A lot of them are just taken off. So the field is getting thin. There's my friend Don Advo out there, and he co-hosts a show with Don Black on the States. They're solid. They'll remain for ages. Main route. So that's the hesitation Beattie Boy has today. I appreciate the blinders letting me have some thoughts on what I've said today. But we're fighting a war for our very survival, our racial survival around the globe, and in particular the motherland is just totally being swamped. The city's taken over. So now is not the time to become squeamish. Now is the time to become tougher. So that's pretty well what I wanted to cover today. So be thinking again of St. George's Day tomorrow, April 23rd. And click around YouTube's around the evening, and you should be able to get some YouTube coverage, even news coverage from, of all places, BBC. They can't avoid it. Patriotism is reviving itself in the white areas because of the desperation when they see the invasion. Okay, so there's the above ground, and the underground is growing. That's for sure. Okay, so we'll be at you tomorrow with a St. George's Day special. I can't say I'm going to have anything super duper special, but I'll be here to praise our English heritage, our English ceremonial symbolism here in Canada. England being a mainstay of Great Britain, of course, and I pray that our Scottish brothers will stay within the United Kingdom. Okay, so that's it for today. We'll talk at you tomorrow, St. George's Day. Bye for now.